Hola clase, buenos días, ¿cómo estamos? I hope you all have been good for our substitute teacher and haven't been causing any problems. Yes, I'm still on jury duty, so I wanted to continue with what we are working with right now. Hopefully this will work. You can always email me if you're still stuck after what I'm doing, but you should have your verb sheet in front of you and some sticky notes because we are going to update our verb chart. So if you don't have those things in front of you, go ahead and press pause and collect those things. The sticky notes are in the cupboard behind the red spring sports calendar. If you have those things in front of you, then let's get going. So we are going to be talking about verbs that end in the letters ER and IR. We've been working with verbs that only end in AR, but now we're going to switch and we're going to study the other two types of verbs. There's a lot of similarities between them, but there's also some differences. So let's review what are verbs. Hopefully at this point in time you know that verbs are action words. So when we're talking about cooking and baking, that's like mixing and stirring and measuring, decorating, frosting, and finally, my favorite, eating and drinking coffee. Those are all action verbs, things that we do. On your list are verbs like to open and to share and to eat and drink and things like that. And those are the verbs that we're going to be working with. So remember we talked about the batter way back when we started studying AR verbs. We talked about how it's one entire thing and that it's not totally complete. It needs to be cooked. We talked about the fact that these are infinitives, and we know that infinitives end in the letters AR, ER, and IR. And we know that all of those mean to and do something. With AR verbs, we talked about hablar meaning to talk, the AR meaning to, and the habl part of it meaning talk. The same thing goes for ER and IR verbs. Those also mean to. And as always with infinitives, we can use them, but it's better to cook it. Just like with the batter. We can eat the batter, but that's not the point of making cupcakes. We can say things like, I want to eat, or I need to write. But more commonly, we say things like, I write, or she writes, and things like that. And so these verbs are going to work in the exact same way that our AR verbs did. So in order to cook our cupcakes, or in order to conjugate our verbs or change our verbs so that they make sense in a sentence, we obviously need our pronouns. Go ahead and pause this video and see if you and your group can come up with these pronouns without skipping ahead. I'll give you the first one just in case you're stuck. Yo always goes in our top left box. See if you and your group can get the rest of our subject pronouns without looking ahead. Go ahead and pause. Now, hopefully your group came up with all of our different cupcakes. Yo and tú, él, ella, and usted, nosotros, vosotros. It's okay if you didn't come up with that one. We don't review it too often. Ellos, ellas, and ustedes. Nice job if you got all of those pronouns. Make sure you review what they mean in your group, just in case we need a little refresher. So now it's time to cook our cupcakes. We know that we don't want to say to eat anymore. We want to say I eat, you eat, he or she eats, so on and so forth. So in order to cook our cupcakes and frost our cupcakes correctly, we need to know the parts of our infinitive. And just like AR verbs, the ER and IR work the same way. So we have our stem of our verb, and we take off the ending. When we no longer want to say to eat, we take off the ER, so we just have the eat part of the verb. Just like with our AR verbs. When we didn't want to say to talk anymore, we took off our AR and had habl. Or if we didn't want to say want anymore, we took off our AR and added dese. So it's the same idea there. When we don't want to say to do something, we take off our ER or IR, and then we add our appropriate frosting, which you are now going to take a minute and write down on your sticky notes. Here they are for ER verbs. If it's a yo, we actually don't change a thing. It still ends in an O. If it's tú, it ends in an es, es. El, ella, usted, the letter E, A in Spanish. Nosotros hemos, vosotros hais. I know Arturo is going to make fun of me for that one. And ellos, ellas, ustedes, en. So take a moment and jot those down on your sticky notes. I would keep both the AR and these ER endings so that you have both of them to reference on your verb chart. I would also leave a little space here because we're going to add one more thing to our nosotros form. So go ahead and pause and catch up with your group for a moment. So this is what it looks like when it's attached to a verb. We have yo, meaning that we're wanting to say I eat. So we add our O ending and we have yo como. If we wanted to say you eat because we don't want to say to eat anymore, then we say comes. If we had él, ella, or usted, we are going to say come. If we had nosotros, we are going to say comemos. And finally, ellos, ellas, and ustedes, we are going to have comen. Hopefully you have that all written down on your sticky notes. Now let's talk about IR verbs. I have good news. There's only one small difference between ER verbs and IR verbs. And I bet you can guess it because I told you to leave a little space before you took notes on your sticky notes. So these verbs work the exact same way. Here we have to write. The reason that I know it's to do something is because it ends in an AR, ER, or IR. So if we don't want to say, I need to write, I have to write, I should write, we want to say, I write or you write. As always, we follow the same process that we've been following all along. We take off the part of the verb that means to, and we are left with our stem, escribe, and we add on our appropriate endings. This is where it's good news. This should look pretty similar. Yo is the same. Tu is the same. El, ella, usted is the same. The only difference is nosotros. When it's IR verbs, we have an emos. When it's ER verbs, we have hemos. And when it's AR verbs, we have amos. The nosotros form matches the verb that it's with. AR verbs A, ER verbs E, IR verbs I. So that is the only difference if you want to mark that down on your sticky note now. Even the ellos, ellas, and ustedes forms take N. Is is just gross, and I know you guys are going to make fun of me for that later, but is gross. It would be like escribís or something like that. So feel free to write it down if you're interested, but the only difference on IR verbs is in the nosotros form. So now we are going to practice. Oh, pardon me, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. So we have yo escribo, tú escribes, él, ella, usted escribe. It looks exactly the same as our ER verbs. We have nosotros escribimos. Again, our only difference, we changed it to an I. And ellos, ellas, ustedes escriben. So these are what some of those verbs look like. Ella bebe, she drinks. Tú comprendes, you understand. Yo leo, I read. Notice how we didn't take off both E's of leer, just the one ER. That second E stays. We also have ellos reciben and usted escribe. So now, go ahead and grab some dry erase markers and we're going to practice this on our desks. I am just going to click through this, have a group member pause on the English part of the verb, or excuse me, English part of the words. Have your group member pause. When everybody has written down their answer, go ahead and click through and I will click through to the next answer. Like I said, stop and make sure all your group mates have it and email me if you have any questions. But please complete this practice before the next step. Alrighty, nice job. Thank you guys for being so flexible with me being gone on jury duty. I really hope to be back tomorrow, but we will see. In the meantime, if there is time left in class, I have a quizzes prepared for you. It's going to be individual this time, not as a group. Just simply follow the instructions that are on my website. Again, it's individual, so you do not have to wait until everybody is logged in. Once you personally are logged in on a tablet, go ahead and start the activity. Please make sure you complete this because that will tell me how much you understood this lecture that I did and how much practice I need to do for tomorrow. So please take it seriously so I know how effective I'm being from a recording. I miss you guys. I hope you are being well for the sub, and I really, really, really hope to see you tomorrow. Take care. Adios.